Manitowoc undercounter Neo. It's a UDF 140. It's got a bad hot gas valve. Let me show you what's going on. I have the water shut off so I can give you a good idea of what's going on with this. Once the compressor turns on, instead of getting cold, this grid gets warm. And that is because down inside of here, you can't really see it, but that guy right there, that's the hot gas valve. That is getting stuck open. So instead of getting cold, this grid pattern right here gets warm and doesn't ever make any ice. So I'm gonna show you how to swap out that hot gas valve slash harvest valve. I'm gonna start by unplugging the machine. There's usually a louver right here, but 2 screws and that louver comes out. Then you're gonna loosen up these 4 screws here, these 4 screws right here, take off the cover to the electrical box, and then unplug this guy, and then undo that. After you disconnect those, this whole bin will come off and slide forward, and you can just set that on the ground in front of it or off to the side. With the bin removed, we're now going to get set up to recover our refrigerant. We are going to recover from this point here and this point here. I've got my high side, low side connected to my manifold, goes into my recovery machine, into my tank. Everything's been purged. I'm just gonna open that up, let the pressure equalize a little bit, and then I'm gonna click this guy on, wait for my pressures on my gauge to go down to 0, possibly even into a vacuum. And those should start pulling down almost immediately. You can see it on the low side. Just wait till it gets down into the negative. There's only about 6 ounces of refrigerant in these little machines. So you can see that's in the negative, that's in the negative. So we can go ahead and get rid of this for right now and then press forward on replacing this. And we're gonna be replacing the filter dryer as well. Like I had already said, we're going to be replacing this hot gas valve and this filter dryer. We are going to prep this area by using some wet rags, covering up all these wires. We're gonna remove the actual solenoid and the bracket, and we're gonna cut the zip tie, disconnect the power in, and then cover all of this stuff with some wet rags. We're also gonna move this out of the way because I've had it happen to me before while I was welding here. The bottom of this warmed up enough to start melting this. So I'm just gonna get it up out of the way to avoid that issue. With everything prepped and covered, I've got my nitrogen bottle, flowing nitrogen. Hot gas valve is open to make sure nitrogen is going through this area, and the Schrader is removed. So this is where my pressure is being relieved from. Now I'm just going to fire up the torch, warm that up enough to take off that joint, then that one and these two, and then I'm gonna go ahead and replace them with the new filter dryer and new harvest valve. With those 2 guys taken out, and they're over there now, we've got replacement hot gas valve and replacement filter dryer. That's the part number. Don't use this as a reference. Make sure you double check with Manitowoc tech support or your parts house, because there are different hot gas valves for different machines, possibly different filter dryers. I just don't want you to get the wrong part. We're gonna unbox these, unbag these, set them in place so we can get ready to weld them. Sometimes you can get lucky and slip those things right on there without having to heat up the copper before slipping it in. In this case, I got lucky all the way around. This one's a little bit sticking out, so when I heat up that solder, it should slip right back into place. But I don't know if you can hear it, but my nitrogen is flowing and it's time to weld this guy all back together. All the welding is now complete. Used a flashlight and a mirror, inspected around all of my welds. I'm now going to put my Schrader back in and hook up my vacuum to place this thing in a vacuum all the way down to 500 microns. Vacuum pump is all set up. Going to my gauge set. All of these are open. This is on. Looking for a reading. I did put my Schrader back inside and both of these are open. So all I need to do is click this on. This number is going to start pulling down, and our goal is to get to 500 or close to it. It could go quick, could take a while. There's not really any rhyme or reason to it, but 30 minutes, maybe an hour should be fine. While my vacuum is running, so we're already down at 4,750, I'm going to put this bracket back in, which that goes there. This guy goes like that, and then all the screws go in place, and then we're gonna plug these back in and throw a zip tie around there. Just gotta let this thing keep running. We're at 2,600. This is what this should look like when it's all put together. Don't forget the screw on top. Zip tie these in place. And then once this gets down to 500, we're going to charge this thing up. Total charge is only about 7 ounces of R404A. We just got below the 500 micron mark. We're going to leave our vacuum pump running, but we're gonna set up the refrigerant and the scale. We're gonna take the micron gauge out of there, and then at the very last minute, we'll cut off the pump, close it, and then open up the charging hose and let the refrigerant flow into the system. I have a little bit of refrigerant flowing out of this hose to get the air out of it, and I'm gonna connect this. That'll keep all the air out of the system, but it's not gonna mess up my charge because there's not gonna be any liquid in here. So I'm gonna close off my vacuum pump, turn that off, close off my high side because we don't want liquid refrigerant going to the compressor. Excuse me, I just got that backwards. We want to put the liquid refrigerant into the high side. We're gonna close off our suction side because we don't want liquid refrigerant going to the compressor. Don't know why I jacked that up. So suction side's closed, vacuum's closed, that's been closed. So the high side's open. I got my scale set up. That's at 0. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to open that, and then I'm gonna open this. I'm gonna cut this off. As soon as it gets to 7 ounces, I'm gonna cut it off. 6, 7. I'm gonna lose a little bit when I take my hoses off, so that 7.25. I might even give it just a touch more. That's probably more than enough, 7.75. So all I did was I closed that right away, and I'm gonna fire this thing up, and I'm gonna suck everything in through the suction side, and that should be my complete charge. It says right down here, 6.77 ounces. So I just rounded it up to 7. Figure I'm gonna lose half an ounce taking my hoses off. Let me plug this in and get it running. Easiest way to do this now that it's plugged in, you could put this on there, or you can just press and hold your test button. All your relays are gonna get energized for 3 minutes. After that 3-minute period, it'll go into a free cycle. That free cycle will give you the opportunity to suck all the refrigerant in through the suction side, and then we'll take off our hoses, put the bin on there, connect water, and see if this thing produces ice. We are up and running. I connected my water, so that's filling. Suction side's pulling down to 55 PSI. That's open, that's closed. So now we can take this off quickly, get that out of the way, and then that's not gonna get any lower. So we can take this off quickly, try not to lose any of it. And before this actually starts running, I'm just gonna unplug it. That's getting nice and cold. I'm gonna unplug it and then put the bin back on and let it run and make ice. Also, I'm gonna put these caps back on there. We just cycled into Harvest. This is getting ready to drop some ice. While it's getting ready to drop, I encourage you to check out Ice Machine 411 on YouTube. There's a lot of different videos about Manitowoc ice machines, Scotsman, Hashizaki, and Ice-Matic, as well as some other lesser known brands. There you go, we dropped ice. I'm actually gonna move this float up to the next higher level, thicken up that ice a little bit. And that's how you change the hot gas valve on a Manitowoc ice machine, so your ice machine doesn't end up in the boneyard. Like all these scrap machines, I'm gonna pick one out and try to fix it for you on the next episode of Ice Machine 411.